Hey folks, this is me, Vishwas Narayan. I'm the host of this Pioneer South India Summit. Exclusively just got to you from Bangalore chapter. I love my community because it gives me a lot of leverage today. It gives me a lot of passion to work
Exclusively
towards.
just
Yeah. So there is always a need for me to understand, okay, this is what we are doing for the world of AI and the deep learning, right? You know, there is always that one dilemma that comes up like, what should we do in a data science job? And what's the next big thing that we are going to do? And right now, I think thank you so much, Path sir, for giving such great insights for us. Means a lot to us because a lot of times when we are in this rat race of winning everything in the world, probably we might tend to lose. So thanks for guiding us today.
Thanks, Vishwas, for having me here. And
Yeah.
yeah. As you rightly said, it's not just for data science, but it practically is for all tech, right?
Hmm.
So, like even when I started back in 2016, right out of college, I still believe like software engineering is the best job. But and like I remember, I still in the my college days, I used to work on recommender systems, and we were trying to like read the Bitcoin white paper and trying to implement blockchain at that time, uh, which was still very new for people and even for professors. It was like it wasn't a buzzword that much that people were so much into it, but like over the past 5 years, I have seen both of these technologies like going from what it was like decade ago to like fast track, even in terms of like deployment, even in terms of job openings, if you see. So if you go to the historical data of like 2010 versus today, you wouldn't find some of these roles, right? So you can imagine there is no precursor to how to be a data scientist beyond 5 years worth of data, right? And all these positions also got renamed. So again, so I'd just like to reiterate that quote from Andrew in his courses that he said that neural networks have been around since decades, right? But
Hmm.
like deep learning was something which came in and it acted as a good uh, you can say marketing, like because it is just so deep.
Sure.
So in a way, all these things get rebranded, right? So data science also is a very old field. It's not just
Yeah.
like it's not just like a decade old thing. It has been there since I don't know,
Very
since
long
computer
time.
science evolved. Yeah.
It's
So that
even
is why
before
like
that because we used to churn the data somehow or the other using an analog or a digital computer. ENIAC was always
yeah.
doing that. It's always
Yeah,
there.
yeah, and I think there are like certain instances where people used to calculate those tabular data on paper in like early
Yeah.
1900s or 1800s, and they used to do
Earlier,
some sort of
yeah,
analysis. So what we term it as EDA and charting and all those things, they used to do it on paper.
paper
So even the technology has evolved, but the core
and
concepts
programming
like
also.
remain.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
on a
core
magnetic
concepts
strip,
remain.
somebody used to code it. Like programmers used to write the code on a paper, and somebody used to go and tuck tuck tuck. That's the thing. And also one more
Yeah,
thing, folks. The entire series that we are doing here is always available on Pioneer AI South India Summit.web.app. So please do check that link out exactly on the day of 30th. It will be available for you from 30th December 2021. So it's all for you folks, and over to you, sir. And the stage
sure.
is yours.
Sure, thanks. So this presentation or like this session is primarily to uh it is primarily based on my experiences in this field. So as I said, I started in 2016. So not much was there in terms of data science jobs. So even in this span of just 5 years, I have seen like how this different roles have evolved, and even I have evolved myself with these roles. So there are like some things which worked for me and some things which didn't work for me. So this session is primarily focused on that to like give my lessons or like my learnings uh, over this AI saga which we are going through. So just a disclaimer before we begin. So this was also back in 2016 where uh, I was just utilizing AWS to train something for my random experiment. And the next day, I saw like I'd forgotten to turn off that instance. So I had seen like $1,500 worth of bill reflected in my billing. And yeah, so listened, quite learned that even though you are experimenting, you should definitely keep a tab on what you are doing. So yeah, just to give you a quick introduction. So, like, I've been working in different domains. I've been working in different positions. So, currently, I work as an AI evangelist and product manager at Cactus Communication. Uh, Recently, also used to work at deeplearning.ai. So, there my role was different. So, for example, if you look at the title of learning technologist, and if you go back and search for these kind of roles, you would hardly find these roles, and let alone how to apply for such roles. So, in that sense, like what the trend is going on is that you are getting these new and new roles, right? And there is no one to tell you to how to prepare for them, or like how do you actually get these kind of jobs. So that is where like sometimes it's just your actions and what you do as a person, as an individual, that really helps even companies to like create new job roles for you, or like tweak the ones which are there. So I worked in different domains. Like I've had experience, extensive experience in edtech, uh, a bit of experience in logistics and agricultural tech as well. So all in all, most of the time I've been on the applied side of it, less on the research side of it. So let's just start with what works, in the sense that if you want to pursue these kind of jobs, how do you go about it? So looking back, like when I used to, so I started my journey as a software engineer at Samsung, and I wanted to go into the machine learning field. So this was just me 4 years ago thinking of how to apply for a data scientist role. And whenever I would search, there were no practically data science role which were for inexperienced people, or like they all required like 5 years worth of experience, 4 years worth of experience, and those are very senior roles. So how do you actually start, or like what all things can you do in such scenarios? So one thing I learned was that people were doing all sorts of projects, right? So you have uh, different MOOCs from which you get ideas to do different levels of projects. You already have like the traditional ones, right? So you have cat dog classifiers, you have your Titanics, you have your uh, stock market, Bitcoin predictors, and all these things. If you now go and put it out on your resume, they look dated, even though you might have found super value while doing these projects. But now everyone is having them on their resumes, right? So it doesn't act like a rarity. So you don't stand out, even if a recruiter looks at your resume, they are like, oh, this is very common. What is new about it? So what I learned over time is that if you are doing these things, that's fine, but you have to go one step ahead, or like try to be as in depth as possible if you can. So, like, let's say instead of building a cat dog classifier, let's say you build your own custom data set of your like your local dogs and local cats, and made and did the tagging part, did the cleaning part, and did, let's say, final model evaluation, and you're running it on a mobile device. So if you make that whole end-to-end pipeline and like try to explain it in your own words, that is much more enriching as a project to also uh, mention to people and recruiter, versus just saying that, hey, I built a classifier, which was part of some course. So these kind of insights really help, especially if you're applying to certain places. So you can put them on GitHub, you can put it on Kaggle, you can have it on your resume, but at the end of the day, it has to make you stand out from the crowd, because everyone is doing this, right? Everyone wants to get into AI, everyone wants to get into data science, but at the end of the day, you want that job, right? So you have to do something which is uh, which sets you apart from the crowd. Second thing is which has helped me a lot is like volunteering. So, as I said, that data science has been around since decades, right? And the major factor which also bolstered deep learning and machine learning in the past 5, 6 years is that the community became too active, and you had lots and lots of people sharing what they are building, sharing these frameworks. Google came out with TensorFlow, Facebook came out with PyTorch, and all these other libraries which we are now using, which makes our lives easier. So, in a way, if I give you an analogy in terms of like, uh, let's say, if you are downloading something, sometimes you are just consuming information on a regular basis, versus if you start uploading, if you start contributing, that is where like the real value gets unlocked. So this was also something which helped me land a job at deeplearning.ai. So I was just doing some volunteering work, I was testing their courses, I was just giving valuable feedback, I was mentoring students, and I wasn't expecting anything out of this. I was just doing it for like giving back to the community, giving back to people who have helped me with their courses. So like this really helped me and like land a job. And I never imagined that even volunteering or like helping, just doing something without any expectation can also like land you up in a really good place. So yeah, that's why like I always encourage people, even though I do mentor people, I also encourage them that you should also mentor anyone who comes up with you or comes up to you and asks you that, hey, I need this help in this certain thing, or like I also want to know how you're doing this. So always keep an open mind on like helping out people. You never know uh, what might eventually uh, help you in the later stages of your career. The third thing is that this is actually debatable a lot, but I have felt that certifications have helped me in some way or the another. So, like, I have done close to like 50 odd certifications online, and sometimes it acts like a good starting point or a good conversation point, right? But beyond that, it's just that whatever you have learned, that is more important, right? So, certifications for the sake of doing certifications do give you that leg up that okay, you might get in uh, based on some requirements that reflect that certification is, but then at the end of the day there will be a live human person asking you what you have actually learned or have you applied that. And that is where most of the people get filtered out, because doing a course just for the certification is not enough. You need to understand which course you are doing and what are its implications, and also try to build on top of it. So that is where like the certifications help you give that structure, that at least you are not going around figuring out stuff on your own. You at least are doing something in a very systematic manner. And at the end of the day, you know that, okay, this is what I am doing. And by doing that, uh, slowly and steadily, you also realize that, okay, can I build on top of it? So rather than building your own platform or like your own web app or an application which is doing something, you start off small, and that thing like has a snowball effect, right? So one thing leads to another, and you are building a bigger thing while you are learning, right? So always start small, and always do it in a structured manner rather than just doing things haphazardly. And I think certifications give you that level of structure, and not to like say that certifications don't matter, and in the age of applications, you might be seeing that people companies don't require you to have like your degrees, formal degrees and all those things. But I do believe that at least they give you that discipline, and that discipline, if you can like self-inflict upon yourself to do those things without even having a degree or like without even having a course, that's fine. But from my experience, I have found that if I start doing something on my own, I might get distracted by doing something else, or like having all these other things which are going on in the world, versus if I know that I have a goal, that I have to finish this course and I have to build something by this week. So that keeps me on track. So treat certifications as those kind of important things rather than treating them as just a PDF or a piece of paper which will help you get a job. So coming to so these were the top three things in these kind of fields where I said, right? So there aren't any roles which are actually there. So you try to kind of get people to know you and then apply for these kind of job roles whenever they come up. So there are things which work and there are things which don't. So there are many things which didn't work, which I tried. So I'll try to just cover a few of them of what things didn't work. So one of the bigger thing was that uh, when you are exploring, when you are learning new things, you also want to do a lot of things at the same time. So even in my early days, I was doing a lot of different side projects, and I realized that at one point of time, my GitHub had close to like 20, 30 repos, right? And those were just single line Python files or like one Jupyter notebook or just a blank README and nothing else. And I was just doing or like starting things and not really taking them to completion, or like not really thinking it out through that, okay, what can be built on top of it? Can this be an iterative bigger system? So this is very important that you don't, at least in the initial days, you don't go for uh, that much diversification, right? You stick to at least maximum just one or two projects which you think are well thought out and like can be expanded to longer projects over time and build them and maintain them. So writing code is not just enough, right? You have to build a good ecosystem around it. You have to have better documentation. You need to have better test cases. You need to maintain it as an open source project. So there are all these things which actually make you learn how things also work in the real life, right? So fresh out of college, or like even if you are just jumping in this domain, you don't think that this is important. You're just focused mostly on like, let's build a model, or like let's build this, which is like something new. But at the same time, you have to look at the engineering aspect of it, because most of the time companies don't want to look at what you have built as a model, or like what was your approach. They are more fascinated, or like they are more interested in knowing how you try to scale it, how you try to deploy it, and how you try to initially work with the data to actually reach that desired uh, outcome. So it's very important that you always take time, like thinking that whatever you're building, just take time and don't try to do everything all at once. uh, it may sound counterintuitive because you are in the exploration phase, right? So practically you keep on trying doing new things. You want to do new things to like understand which thing interests you more. But I would suggest that at least give, like, dedicate some time for one field and try to go in as much depth as possible, which you can, to like understand that does it work for you or not, rather than giving up early. Because sometimes what happens is that you might end up finding some very interesting thing, and that might also work. So yeah, uh, this is one thing. And the next thing is that people always, especially the ones who are transitioning from other roles, uh, especially in industry, there is this whole notion, right, that in your early part of career, or if you're transitioning to a new field, you shouldn't look at incentives or other things. You should just look at what work you are getting or what experience you are gaining out of it, and you shouldn't focus on other things. But if you look at the psychology of a person working on something where he or she is not paid that much, or he or she is not feeling valued, even though you are gaining in terms of your experiences or work quality, uh, what you feel at the end of the day whenever you get up is that I'm not getting paid enough, or that thing acts like a psychological barrier. So that in a way hinders your growth, or you're always on that constant lookout, or like you have that induced anxiety that I want to do better. I want to l- go somewhere which like values me more. So in a way, you can start where people say that, okay, if you, even if you are just doing it for the sake of it, just learning, you can start that way, but always keep in mind that those things don't work for longer period of time. And it is important to also find companies or people with whom you're working on how they treat you, because at the end of the day, if you are doing quality work and you are giving output, if they value you, they will automatically tell you that, hey, let's convert this to full time, or let's have this as a better opportunity because your output is really phenomenal than what you expected. So it's always important to know your worth, even though you are just starting out in the field, right? So this is just a psychological factor, but at the same time, you should have that balance. Is what I feel. Even if it is just delay, or like even if you are just turning around money, for example, on the other side of the spectrum, there you would find that you are not learning that much, or like you are stuck in some technology, and your career is shaped on that technology. So that is also important, that you uh, value the work quality, but at the same time you also are not just chasing dollars, like. And yeah, there are lots and lots of things which can be covered, and there are lots and lots of things which people would tell you that this works for me, this doesn't work for me, or like uh, do this particular course, you will get a job, or like learn this particular technology, you will get this. This is what we are looking for, so and so forth. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to what you want to do in your life, right? These are very short-term goals whenever you're thinking of that. You also don't know in the next couple of years where would you be, right? Especially in tech domain, even the domain itself is expanding. So 2 years ago, you didn't have metaverse, you didn't have NFTs and all these things, right? But now you do have these things. So it's important to like not really have like a very, very long-term plan, because definitely they won't work out in the way you plan it to. So do try to like first make these short-term goals, do try to survive for shorter periods of time. That will really help you in building and moving towards a much more enriching experience, is what I would say. Because if you have a very unrealistic bigger goal, even though it might help you to push every day, but it would always keep you unsatisfied. And that is something which is important to know, that uh, people, once they get that data science job which they were looking for, or that plush machine learning job which they were looking for, after that they are like, what to do next, right? So it is as like to compare it is like once you have watched that series, or once you have watched that movie, you feel that void, that what to do next, right? So that shouldn't happen. If you keep on having smaller goals, and you know that, okay, this was just one part of me getting a job or me starting my own company, there is a next journey ahead of me of what to do next, then you would always feel satisfied with what you are doing, and you will reward your hard work. And that is more important than anything else, because at the end of the day, if you're not satisfied in whatever you're doing, you will again find a new buzzword somewhere down the line after 3 or 4 years, and you will again try to move into that. And that will always keep you on toes, I agree, but it's not healthy enough, and you do have to take into account your mental health, right? And this kind of loop is very tricky to get out of. So again, just to reiterate on that, that at the end of the day, we have to survive, but it matters on how you plan on surviving. So yeah, that's it. If we have any questions, uh, I can answer them. And yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It was so good that I was able to get this session done. Guys, I know he has done an amazing job of getting you guys that understanding of what is it all about when you're talking about data science job, right? Don't worry. Even if you are like, okay, I listen to it, but like I'm not able to frame the questions right now. Don't worry about that. Just reach out to him again. He'll be able to help you for sure. And uh, and I think all the LinkedIn credentials, Twitter credentials are already there, and it's always there for you to reach out to us. So thank you so much. If you have any queries, do reach out to us. Thank you so much, folks.
Sure. And yeah, just to reiterate on the fact, so Pi and AI itself is also like a community, right? So that community itself has been built keeping these things in mind, that you can mentor people, you can interact with like-minded folks and
Mm.
excel in this field. So do leverage these kind of
This
communities, because the end of the day, these communities are driven by the likes of you and me. They are not driven by some company or itself. They're just driven by a bunch of people who want to learn, who want to grow in this field. So
it's like,
it's always important to like be a part
yeah,
of these kind of communities, because you never know. You might be interacting with someone who might become your colleague in a few days or few months. So it's always important, and
yeah.
that's why
I just got
the
a
power of
podcast
community
guest
is
now.
important.
I just got a podcast guest after this session, so don't worry about that. It comes with its own perks, by the way. I know that these days digital world is so bad that we're not able to interact as we were back
Yeah,
then. Age old days. So yeah, thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much for being part of the session, and we'll end the broadcast now.